So even the mainstream media has been turning on Joe Biden at this point because his failures have become so manifest and palpable, they are actually undeniable. So there are some really great clips of this. Now, it's not just the couple of clips I'm going to show you. I've actually seen lots and lots of different ones, but I just think that one or two of them sum it up. Let's play the first clip.
President Biden's news conference on Wednesday was designed to kick off a second-year reset of his presidency. Recapture his political identity, if you will. But our new NBC News poll suggests Mr. Biden does need a reset because he's lost his identity a bit. He's no longer seen as competent and effective. He's no longer seen as a good commander-in-chief, or perhaps most damaging, as easygoing and likable. In fact, just 5% of adults say Mr. Biden has performed better than expected as president. One of the many lowests, firsts, and fewests in our poll. And as we kick off our Meet the Midterms coverage heading into November, the NBC News political unit developed what we're calling a midterm meter. It's based on previous election cycles. And it's basically 3 poll numbers you need to know best. I'm going to start with perhaps the most important number to understand the direction of the midterms. It's job approval here. The president's job approval rating sitting at 43%. If you look at history shows that kind of presidential approval rating leads to a shellacking for the party in power. How about the mood of the nation? Well, let me show you this. Right now, our wrong track, nation's on the wrong track number, sitting at 72%. Second poll in a row where we've been over 70%. This is only the third time in our polls history over 30 years where we've had 2 tracks that were that off. That, again, would put you in shellacking territory for the party in power.
I mean, this is MSNBC. This is a corporation that is institutionally Democrat. Yeah. And so if they're like, look, you're going to get absolutely ruined come the midterms, let alone the next election, this is not good. And CNN, 4 days ago, had a commentator on to explain what they thought about Biden. And it was shockingly brutal. So we're going to watch it.
Scott, I read a piece that you just wrote, essentially saying this is Joe Biden doing what Joe Biden does.
Yeah, well, I never imagined how quickly this would all unfold. The person they sold on the campaign, the nice old, moderate grandpa who just wanted to help everybody get along and compromise, is not what we got over the last year. He has no mandate really to do much of anything. It's amazing that he got a couple of things done when the mandate was really pretty clear. 50-50 Senate, a near 50-50 House, and a pretty close presidential election. The mandate was simply replace Donald Trump and don't do anything drastic or stupid. And everything about this agenda is extremely drastic. And he's been angrier than I think people expected. He's been more divisive. He's been more partisan. You look at the issues. We built 5 years of coverage on Trump out of Russia, COVID, and democracy. The president at his press conference invites Russia to invade the Ukraine. We got more deaths under Biden than Trump.
Look at that face.
And now we have the president and vice president and leading Democrats question the legitimacy of the 2022 election. Are we any better off on these 3 issues that we crucified Trump over? I think he has a lot of political problems, and an AP poll came out this morning. Only 28% of Americans want the sitting president to run for re-election, and fewer than half of Democrats. This is a disaster.
Wow. And again, CNN, is also a really, quite leftist news channel.
Absolutely. And so you can tell that in the Biden camp, there must be some unbelievable levels of stress.
Yeah.
Because they've been projecting like this infallible aura out from Psaki and her press briefings that go down to the press, and so it's all like this glowing positive coverage, whereas everyone on the ground is like, wait, this is actually terrible.
Yeah.
How has it got this terrible? And so you can see the tension in their faces. And this was actually, I thought, brilliantly exposed by Jen Psaki when she went on The View. Now again, like they spend the first 5 minutes of this essentially going, oh, you're so perfect, you're so wonderful, I love your press briefings, blah blah blah, and she's just like, ha 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 ha, thank you. And then they're like, right, so what are you working on? They're trying to get rid of the filibuster. Now, the filibuster is actually not a part of the American Constitution. It's actually a tradition that is built up in the Senate, and this is one of those examples actually of how a tradition exposes wisdom that you wouldn't have rationally considered. So
and the filibuster is when people sort of delay bills going through as a sort of political tool.
Because of extreme opposition. And the thing is, what that means is you've got to stand there for hours talking. So it requires a huge amount of commitment on your part. So you must have a genuine investment on the part of the person doing the filibuster in order to want to actually, actually do this thing. So it speaks to like, look, if we're going to have a country, we've got to have goodwill between both parties. And if we're prepared to stand here, I mean, the longest filibuster was literally like 24 hours where someone's just stood there talking for an entire day. And so look, if you're going to put that bloody effort in, you must have a really important reason to do this, right? And so this is one of those things that you wouldn't have planned out in advance, but has emerged because as a necessary tool.
Yeah.
Right? And it's got a cost on both sides. And so they're trying to get rid of the filibuster, obviously. I mean, the Democrats use the filibuster loads against Trump. They don't care. They don't want them being used against themselves, so they're trying to get rid of it. And it's not working. They've just failed to get rid of it. And Psaki is unhappy with this. You can see the tension in her face. Let's watch this.
Hey, Jen, Lindsay Davis here. Of course, as you know all too well, earlier this week, the Senate once again failed to pass voting rights protections, with Democrats Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema joining all Republicans in rejecting changing the filibuster rules. The president has said that he was disappointed but not deterred. So where do you see a path forward at this point?
Well, the path forward is we have to keep fighting. Look, I think this week has been frustrating, devastating, angering, all of those things. And everybody who's been fighting for this, there's so many activists across the country who have been so central to getting to this point. I mean, just a year ago, there were more people who were opposed to filibuster changes in the Senate. So we've made some progress on that front, but we've got to stay at it. So my advice to everyone out there who's frustrated, sad, angry, pissed off, feel those emotions, go to a kickboxing class, have a margarita, do whatever you need to do this weekend, and then wake up on Monday morning, we got to keep fighting.
Who the hell is she talking to? Like the wine aunt demographic that watches The View. Like, have a margarita. Have you looked at the fuel prices? Like, what is wrong with you? And so obviously the memes were just gold at this. I mean, just get this up, John. Just it's one of those memes that was going around that I particularly enjoyed. But it's like, what sort of detached, like, lunatic position is this? Right?
It's a real sort of modern version of Let Them Eat Cake.
Yes.
Revealing the sort of the just lack of association and connection with the sort of grim realities that are facing Americans right now as they face like spiraling inflation.
Food costs going up, you know, COVID, like draconian things being imposed on them.
And that's if you can actually buy some food, because the ports are all because they're publicly managed, so you know food's not coming through. And
Jen Psaki's just like, let them drink margaritas.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, Jen Antoinette. And so this is the point, though. It's just undeniable what's happening in the United States right now and how unbelievably catastrophic it is. For example, as the Daily Caller pointed out, right, the oil and gas productions are. It's just ridiculous what's happened to them. But the thing is, it's Biden's policies that have done this. So this was Kathleen Sgama, president of the Colorado-based Western Energy Alliance, told the Daily Caller that basically she says, the signal sent very early on, notably the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline and the federal leasing ban, so they can't drill for oil in particular federal lands, and they're cancelling the Keystone Pipeline, would have gone from Canada to America, which means that basically there's uncertainty in the industry, and so they've become not energy independent and reliant on foreign oil imports.
Oil exploration and prospect, there's a huge run-up cost, leading cost. So I mean, it costs like millions and millions to prospect for oil and then drill for it. So if there's even a suspicion of in 5 years' time or whenever it is the regulations are going to change, so you're not going to be allowed to drill there, they're not going to invest in prospecting there and developing
this wouldn't maybe be such a remarkable thing if under Trump they weren't literally paying people to take the oil away. Oil prices became negative. So it's just interesting how it's directly linked to Biden's policies. And of course, inflation is out of control. If we get the New York Post link, this Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell said, well, basically, inflation is no longer a severe threat to the economy. He called it a severe threat to the economy, and it's no longer just a transitory thing, because they were saying, well, there is no inflation. Oh, inflation's just transitory. Oh, inflation's a good thing.
They said it was just a recovery from COVID, as everybody went out and spent their money, and but no, what they did was they spent they printed $1.7 trillion, and when they print money, I mean, the government is very sort of addictive for the government. We saw this in Zimbabwe, we saw this in the Weimar Republic, anywhere that descends into absolute chaos. So they print money, they've suddenly got money to spend, but every pound, every dollar that they print devalues the dollars that already exist.
They can't print resources. Yeah. That's the problem, because that's what they think that they can do. Well, money is resources, isn't it? Therefore, if we print money, we're effectively printing resources. No, you're not. You're just literally making the money worth half or whatever it was of it's actually worth. And so
destroying anybody who's been sensible and saved for the future, just destroying their savings.
Absolutely. And it's disgusting, frankly, and it totally irresponsible. And so the Washington Post point out that, I mean, this is costs are up for everything: food, energy, vehicles, shelter, transportation, clothing, and of course, gasoline and fuel, 50% more than in December. With some stations literally, I mean, in California, it was something like $2 a gallon, and now it's like $6 a gallon in some places. And so that is unbelievable. You've doubled or tripled the price of fuel. That is, and who is hardest hit by this? Well, not the margaritas drinking Californian wine aunts, obviously. It's the working class people around the country who don't have lots of disposable income.
Yeah, and don't have a Tesla.
Yeah, don't have a Tesla. Yeah, exactly. Don't work at the White House. You know, those people who actually keep the country running. This is obviously just wild and out of control. And so Biden's like, yeah, this is everyone else's fault but mine. Says The Hill. Like, again, another outlet that I would say has an institutional bias in favor of the Democrats and Biden. But even they have to say things like, you know, supply chain trouble started with the pandemic, but the Biden administration hasn't made anything better. In fact, their incompetence has made matters worse. So good. Even The Hill's calling your administration incompetent. I don't recall them calling Trump's administration incompetent. I remember them calling him evil and various other, you know, variants on that. But at the end of the day, the economy was doing very well.
Well, I think quite a few people did call Trump incompetent, but the thing is, it was a different kind of incompetence. I mean, he didn't really sort of get involved. He didn't really enact too much. Biden's very interventionist in the economy and in business with regulations, and the Democrats just love sticking red tape in, and red tape never. I mean, occasionally it's a good idea. Obviously, certain things have to be done. You know, if you've got cladding going on a building, it's great if it doesn't burn. But for a lot of things,
a very specific reference.
Yeah, but like, I mean, you know, there's places, there's a lot of places for regulation, but in general, regulation, and also, you know, not knowing what the regulation is going to be is bad for business and bad for the economy. Whereas Trump, you know, because his administration was sort of gunked up, it meant it didn't interfere, and that actually turned out to be great for the country.
Oh, absolutely.
The best government is the government that does nothing.
And I agree. And they can sit there and go, you know, Trump's incompetent. But if you looked at how things were working, I mean, prices were low, everyone had jobs, everyone had money, everything's going great. Yeah. So you can call him incompetent all you want, but the proof is in the pudding. Yeah. And, you know, everything's going brilliantly.
And if it hadn't been for COVID, then Trump would have probably got re-elected.
Without a doubt. And
if it hadn't been for COVID and manipulation.
Which we can't. We can't talk about falsification.
I meant the manipulation in terms
media
of...
manipulation.
Media manipulation.
Yeah,
so taking down the Hunter Biden story.
Algorithmic manipulation from Google, as Robert Epstein says. So, I think we got away with that. But they point out that, look, you axed the Keystone Pipeline, you took they say they took no fewer than 24 other actions that raised energy prices. Talk about, like, I don't want the government having that sort of level of interference in anything, right? And they say, and yet President Biden won't fess up about the effects his policy have had on supply and energy prices. And again, it's just been everyone else's problem. And, like, you know, complaining about the supply chain problem, they say Pete Buttigieg has been on a 2-month paternity leave that amounted to no more than bad optics. But Buttigieg was AWOL in the West Coast ports, were struggling with daunting bottlenecks, and despite this, the Biden regime is basically done nothing. But let's talk about the bottlenecks and the supply chain. It's always good when the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management are like, don't buy too much. Don't buy too much. There's nothing more American than saying, be restrained with your purchasing. You know, it's not the Soviet Union, but it's close. You may have noticed empty shelves in some stores due to national supply chain issues. There'd be no need to buy more than you normally would. And if you scroll down on this, John, you probably see the first comment. I know. Sorry, let's go to the next one then, because there was a comment on this. From a verified checkmark. But like, the supply chain issues are global, not national. But look at all the people underneath. I live in Argentina, no supply chain issues. I live in the Philippines, no supply chain issues. We live in Britain, no supply chain issues.
I live in London, lots of stuff in the shops.
Yeah, exactly. There's no global supply chain problem. The problem is California, actually. And we know this as well. If you go to this local reporting from a California newspaper, they just explain, by the way, this is basically the fact that like something like 30-40% of all imports to the US go through Californian ports. Yeah. And the problem that they have are environmental regulations.
Yeah.
And so this is not good news,
So
basically.
government involvement. Anytime the government gets involved in a process, it becomes unnecessarily complicated and messed up.
Yes, it's like throwing grit into the wheels instead of oil. You know, it's a terrible idea. And of course, Jen Psaki apparently laughed at a reporter when he asked her what's going on the coast of Los Angeles, mockingly responding to him that she doesn't feel bad that his treadmill will be late. Just go and have a margarita.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't like. I just think that is a hint of the, you know, like you say, communism.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you're allowed to buy. This is, you know, this is what's value. This is what we think is valuable to you. So your treadmill isn't valuable to you. Whereas actually his treadmill, you don't know. He could have been told by his doctor to lose weight.
But like that attitude stops there as well. Well, I mean, there's supply chain problems with the foods and the shelves.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't care. Go and have a margarita.
Yeah,
We're getting rid of the filibuster, loser. It's like, what? I don't care about the filibuster. I care about the fact that I can't go and buy the food I want to eat.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, so things aren't going well in other places either, like the stock market. Peter Doocy, who's a Fox News reporter and is not very popular with the White House at the moment, asked about whether President Biden thinks it's a big deal that the Dow Jones dipped more than 1,100 points. I don't know whether that's a lot or not, but it sounds like it's bad. Yeah. And Psaki, the mouth of Biden, is just like, unlike his predecessor, the president does not look at the stock market as a means by which to judge the economy. What does he use?
That's probably the best measure, the most direct measure of the economy and people's confidence in the economy.
Well, okay, but let's take charitably. Okay, maybe I don't know how the stock market works. I'm not an expert. Maybe that's not the best means. So what is? Is it inflation? Is it supply? Is it the food in the shops, the amount of money that people have made? Because another thing as well, right, is the fact that the wages are down as well in real terms. So wages dipped. There was one of the links, but I skipped over it by accident. But let me just find it, because it was mad. It was like 2.4% down or something like this. And it's like, right, so people's wages are going down and the inflation in the country and all the prices of everything are going up. That's assuming you can even get anything. The Homeland Security is like, don't buy too much, lads, because you know how things are. And she's just like, I don't care.
Well,
I don't care.
On a wider level, wages are going up. I mean, this started under Trump, but it's continued because of the shortage of people. So, I mean, that's one good thing, is that, you know, wages over the years have been rising and sort of, you know, hopefully making up for the dip that they took due to offshoring and automation and all the rest of it. But I mean, the trouble is then, like in the Weimar Republic, when wages went up, and so working people were sort of insulated from a lot of the inflation, but then retired people and people dependent on savings weren't.
Here we go. I found it. It's in the New York Post article. Take-home pay, because of inflation-adjusted hourly earnings, as in because of what inflation has done,
Right.
they're 2.4% less than a year earlier in December.
Right.
So it's inflation up, wages down, everything going badly. Even like, and Psaki's just like, I don't care. This is not my means of judging the economy. Well, what is?
Yeah.
How would you judge the economy? Like, I'm a foreigner. I'm no economic expert, and I'm looking at this thinking, good God, you guys are screwed. And it's not like, you know, Joe Biden's never used the stock market as a measure of like success. I mean, you
know for a fact, if it was going through the roof, he'd be like, "Hey, look at this!"
Well, that's exactly what he did.
Look
like
what
a year ago.
Look what I made happen.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. Go to the next one, John. Like there he is, like, you know, the stock market's 20% higher than when my predecessor was there. Well, there we go. Like, of course he can, you know, because this is just anything.
And
that makes them look good.
how long? I mean, that's not that long after he'd taken over.
Exactly. And so he's taking credit for essentially Trump's economy there.
Yeah.
Okay, but a year in, your economy sucks. Absolutely sucks. Almost everyone in the country. I mean, like, I can't imagine who the 43% of people who have a favorable view of Biden are at this point.
Yeah.
You know, the wine aunt demographic is getting out of control in America, it seems. But yeah, you can tell, though, this is all getting to them, right? The Biden administration, like, they're now surrounded, because before they had, like, all these allies in various different institutions, and all these institutions turn around going, no, you're screwing this up.
Yeah.
You know, everyone can see you're screwing this up.
Well, he presents an existential threat. Kamala Harris as well, whose approval ratings are are terrible as well. They present an existential threat to the Democrats' chances of survival.
Oh, absolutely.
And, getting re-elected at the next election. Because, I mean, Biden, his big sort of selling point was he's not Trump, so he's successfully delivered on not being Donald Trump. He is a different person.
I mean, congratulations.
But I mean, that's probably the easiest one to hit. But his other thing was like, he's going to be competent.
Yes.
People just wanted some sort of stability and competence. Donald Trump, hugely entertaining, but a bit of a wild card, I mean, he had a good crack at being president, but, you're always like, yeesh,
The glorious golden god in hindsight compared to this. I mean, good God,
Yeah.
I'd rather them pay me to take the oil away.
Yeah, competence is really not what he's delivered on, and it's really a shame. You know what I mean? And considering who they could have had Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
They could have
Yeah,
Tulsi
she's
Gabbard
great.
as their candidate, and she would have been like a new Obama.
Yeah.
But like better.
Should have been sensible.
She would have been sensible. She's crossed the party divide. She appeals to everybody. She's a former servicewoman. She's so smart and so on it.
But they were like, no, she's a white supremacist. She's got to go.
Yeah.
And that was the
even
problem.
though she's a woman of color.
She's from Hawaii.
Yeah.
She's a normal person. But that's the point. Like, Biden's got this radical regime and it's screwing everything up. And you can tell it's getting to them because of a hot mic moment with Peter Doocy. If we can go to the next one. Doocy asked him, do you think inflation is a political liability in the midterms? And Biden said, it's a great asset, more inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch. And it's like, look, man, you caused this. You could undo it by just simply rolling back some of these environmental regulations, by not like burrowing out the money. You're the one who's responsible for this. And you're gonna have to take the credit.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to subscribe to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as Contemplations that went up over the weekend, Social Hierarchy. And Josh is behind this one, so if you want to follow Josh as well, you can always go over to Getter. So we get the next one. You can see Josh Firm there. That's how you follow him on Getter and find out what else he's producing. Thank you and goodbye.